Hey guys, today we're going to take a look at lesson 9-5. We're going to continue our fraction extravaganza, and this time showing how fractions can be represented on number lines. So I have provided you a number line down here, and I have it sectioned out, and I've done my best to try to make these sections as equally spaced as possible. That's something that, please, when you make your own number lines, try to do that. But in this, with these equally spaced sections, we're going to count these sections off. Now, how this starts is that we've got 0. So everything starts at 0. Nothing's happened yet. And then as soon as we go to this first tick mark, something's happened. And then the next one, the next one, the next one. We get all the way to where we've gone one whole. One whole candy bar, one whole pizza, one whole pizza, something like that, okay? But it's divided up into smaller sections. And so let's take a look at these sections first. So basically we have our first section, we have our second section, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, and eighth. So we have 8 sections. And so each one of these sections is one of them, 1/8. So we could say that our unit fraction, which means just one part, is 1/8. 1 out of the 8 equal parts. So now let's represent this. Let's put this on the number line. So our first section, our first jump from here to here, we've gone 1/8. Now when we continue on and we go to our second section, we've jumped 2. So now we've gone 2/8. The next section, 3/8. We go on to the next section, 4/8, then 5/8, then 6/8, 7/8, and then we make it to our 8th section, which is 1, but we can also call it 8/8, meaning we've gone all 8 sections of the 8ths. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And that's how we do that. All right, some things to observe from this is that if you notice that the denominator, the number at the bottom of the fraction, what do you notice about the denominator? It's all the same. Because remember, the denominator of a fraction tells you how many equal parts there are for one whole. So in this case, it's been divided up into 8 equal parts, so the denominator will stay 8. The numerator at the top, if you notice, it's going up by 1 each time. This is telling you how far have you traveled on the number line. So for instance, here we have 4/8. Well, that means it's gone individually 4/8. So we started here at 0, and we've gone 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, 4/8. We've gone that far on the number line to make it 4/8. And so on as we would continue on. If we went to another 8, it'd be 5/8, then 6/8, then 7/8, then 8/8. Now let's take a look at this number line. This number line is from 0, so we start at 0, and we go to 1. But if you notice, there's not as many parts to this one. So this one we could take a look at and say, well, how many parts has this been divided up into? We have 1 part. There's 1. There's 2. And there's 3. And 4. We have 4 parts. So each one of these parts would be 1/4, or 1 out of 4. So we could say our unit fraction is 1/4. This represents 1/4. This space represents 1/4. This space 1/4. And this space 1/4. Equally spaced. But now how will we label this number line as we move along from 0 to 1? So what we want to do is, let me change the color here so it's a little different. We go 1/4. Well, that's easy. We've got 1/4. That's how far we've gone. But now, once we go another 1/4, we've gone a total of 2/4. Go one more 1/4. That's 1, 2, 3/4. And then finally 1, 2, 3, 4/4, or 1/2. There you go. 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, 4/4. Once again, we can take a look and say, all right, we want to see how far on the number line we travel. So as we start from 0, we can go up here. If we go that far, we've gone 1/4. Now we've traveled from 0 to here. That's 2/4. Well, what if we keep traveling? Another 1/4. From 0 to here is 3/4. We've traveled 3 equal parts of the fourths. And then finally, boom, we have now traveled all 4 parts. So we've done 4/4, or 4 out of 4, or we could also say 1/2. Let's do number 1 together. Here is the number line that you see for number 1 in guided practice, and it's asking you to decide where to put these fractions here at the bottom in the correct spots for the number line. I want you to think about that. Think about how many spaces do we have, how many parts. Should tell you the denominator. And then where do you put the 1/3? Do you put it 1/3 here? Do you put it here? Do you put the 2/3 here? 2/3 there. Right. So I'm looking here and I'm saying, okay, the numerator is 1. That tells me how many parts I've gone so far. Out of the denominator, 3 whole parts. I've only gone 1 out of the 3. So if I look at that, this is 1 part. So the 1/3 should go here. This denominator has 2. That means I've gone 2 parts. 1, 2. So my 2/3 should go there. Let's take a look at number 2. We have our 0 all the way to 4/4. And we're looking for where to put 1/4 and where to put 3/4. Now remember that we got the denominator. The denominator is telling us how many equal parts are there. So it looks like there are 4 equal parts. We want to know, where do we put the 1/4? Remember, the numerator tells you how many parts you've gone on the number line. 1 out of the 4. So that's just 1 part. So the first part would be 1/4. 1 out of the 4. We go another part. There's 2. 1, 2, 2/4. Now we want to know where the 3/4 is, and I know you're guessing already. Here we go. Boom. 3 parts, 3/4. Now let's take a look at number 3. This is where you're going to do some observations and thinking. You're going to reason here. How are the number lines in number 1 and number 2, and I have them pictured here for you. How are they the same and how are they different? Now first, I want you to take a look at how they are the same. Look at the top line and look at the bottom line. Look at the fractions. What do you notice that's similar, the same? Now pause this video and then come back when you're ready. Okay. Hopefully what you're observing is this. Did you notice how you could say the denominators remain the same? The top one, 3, the denominator. The bottom one, 4, was the denominator. Another thing that you may have noticed that was the same is that they both incrementally went up. They increased by 1. The numerator increased by 1. 1, 2, 3. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, and this one up to 4. Now, take a look at how they are different. So pause this video and then unpause when you're ready. Okay. How are they different? Boy, I'd love to be able to hear your answer, but let's take a look here. What did I see? Well, it looked to me as though the top number line, the amount of the parts were less. There were 1 less part. There were only 3 equal parts, whereas the bottom one, there was 4 equal parts. I noticed that the one with the 3 equal parts, the parts were larger. They were furtherly spaced apart, whereas the number with 4, which is I think of as a bigger number, the parts were smaller. Did you notice that? The bigger the denominator, the smaller the piece. The smaller the denominator, the bigger the piece. Let's look at our final question in guided practice for number 4. Basically, here's the deal. Pete, he's saying that 2/4 is 1/4 the distance between the number line 0 to 1. 0 to 1. But Becky says, 2/4 is 2/4 the distance between 0 and 1. Which one's correct? Well, hopefully, you said that Becky was the correct one. And how you can answer this is that if we're looking for 2/4 the distance, then what you want to do is look for the numerator. The numerator tells you how far you've gone. And the fraction 2/4 says 2 parts, 2/4. And that would be the correct answer. 2/4, you look at the numerator.